Your pitch. What do you think about AI? How are you guys using AI?
Yeah.
Everybody has to answer the AI question, right? So go for it.
I'm ready for the AI question. You didn't catch me off.
Welcome back to Emphasis Tech Talks, a podcast for business leaders leveraging cutting-edge technology to raise their bottom lines. I'm your host, David Clausen of Emphasis Tech. Our guest today is Jeremy Springer, the CFO of Frontier Energy. Jeremy will share some ideas on building a career path for those just getting started and why the smaller organizations tend to have IT report to the CFO. And if that's not enough, he makes a wild prediction about robots taking over. This episode has a lot to unpack, so be sure to like and subscribe to make sure you get notified about future videos as they're released. Jeremy, thanks for joining us today. So tell me, how did you get involved in this aspect of the business? As I recall, before you went from musician to this CFO role that you're playing now? Give us that.
Not exactly directly, yeah. So it is a bit of a long path, but I am still a musician, and music's always going to play a role in my life and a place in my heart. But I started out of high school. I was at the end of this era when record labels were giving musicians record deals. I got a record deal with a few of my friends from high school that eventually ended up being a record signing with EMI. It was during the boy band era, so they wanted to make us a boy band originally, and we weren't exactly in sync. So they told us we should recruit some girls to join the band, and one of those would eventually become my wife. So I met my wife that way, and we still play music to this day. Traveled all around the country, playing some gigs that were really great and some that were really rough, and put out a record and did the whole thing. Eventually the label dropped us because, to be honest, we weren't that great of a band. And we at the end of it, I didn't have anything left. We'd spent a lot of the label advance. They were coming after us for quite a bit of money. And I had a friend who was an accountant, and he sat me down and he said, "Hey, if I think I can probably help you through this, so you don't have to declare bankruptcy." And I said, "Yeah, great. That'd be fantastic." And he sat me down and he really helped me through it. And I saw that and went, that's really quite a bit of power. And so I eventually started working for him, doing tax accounting and actually doing a little bit of software consulting, accounting software consulting. And then I, put myself through school, got my accounting degree, went into public accounting, and had a fledgling firm in Davis reach out to me to help them through some government audits. And I did that, and eventually found the work they were doing, which was really related to energy efficiency, was something I was extremely interested in. So I went full in on that. I left my job in public accounting and became their controller eventually. Then they made me their CFO. We ended up selling to kind of found that we would need to sell, and ended up selling to a large institute in the Midwest called the Gas Technology Institute. I was fully prepared that they would let me go, like they typically do when you acquire a firm with a different CFO, and they didn't. They said they want me to continue with them and help them acquire more companies. So we went on to acquire a total of 5 other companies, and eventually merged them all into what is now Frontier Energy today. So we are really a combination of 6 different companies across the country. And we've seen quite a bit of organic growth since we completed all of those acquisitions as well. So it's been really an adventuresome time, learning to know how all these businesses operate and pulling the good parts out of them and really trying to capitalize on those things.
So that's quite an interesting story. Thanks for sharing that. One of the debates that I hear quite often amongst the IT folks is why does IT end up landing under CFOs in so many organizations?
Yeah, I wonder
So
that too sometimes.
I'd be really interested in learning your thoughts on that. Actually,
It's interesting. It suited well for me because when I was in public accounting, I remember my boss came to me and said, Jeremy, you're great. You're going to be partners someday. I just know it, but you got to figure out if you want to be an IT guy or if you want to be an accountant. And I thought to myself, why can't I be both? That's really kind of how I've, carved my path. I'm a pretty uh, software and IT heavy accountant, and I do think it does tend to fall under the CFO because when you don't have a CTO, you on a smaller firm or a CIO, it tends to fall under the data guy, and the CFO typically is the data guy. With that being said, I've seen some CFOs who probably are less equipped to handle IT or software than they should be, and even me, I from time to time I wish I had a CTO sitting by my side or CIO sitting by my side to help me through some of these things. So, but yeah, I've always kind of tread both paths, and I do see them as being really related. Even my accounting teams, I look to see them develop some level of competence in IT because really the worlds are intertwined. They're never not going to be using IT to some degree. And a firm like Frontier, it's our life is dealing with lots and lots and lots of data. So everybody at Frontier is expected to have some level of understanding of how to deal with that data and the tools to deal with that data. So those can come in a lot of different forms, but yeah, I don't think it's something we can necessarily separate.
well, yeah, I think you're right in the aspect that there are going to always be some overlap. I mean, obviously, the CFOs need the data and so forth. I just That's just been one of those topics that has always intrigued me as to the different thought processes about how that came about.
Right.
So, tell me about some of the challenges. One of the things that we like to talk about a lot here. So we have um, business owners and business leaders from all over that are watching us and looking for ideas and trying to learn about how to leverage technology and use that to help them operate more efficiently and add to the bottom line. So, um, tell me about challenges. What challenges have you had? How did you overcome those? What would be some of that wisdom that you gained along the way that you'd share with the audience?
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest challenges are an approach and not necessarily in the technologies. I'm a very problem focused person. I tend to tell my staff you need to spend 3 times longer on the problem than you are actually on the solution. And the reason for this is often someone sees a flash in the pan technology and they go, oh, that technology is going to solve all my problems and I won't ever have to worry about this thing again. And that's never really quite how it works, because if you don't understand your problem to begin with, then you're never going to understand how to implement the solution. And there's always 15 million different ways to implement any solution. And then you might get to the end of the road there and find that, you didn't really solve your problem. You just made it more complicated. So I guess that was a long path for me. I will say I used to be one of those people that was, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, and we have to do it because everybody's doing it. And we've got to acquire this amazing solution that's going to fix everything. I'd say I probably took more times learning that was the wrong approach than I should have. But that was a big learning experience. And then also having a culture where problems can be quickly communicated and quickly addressed, and there isn't a barrier of I guess I'd rather have 100 really really small problems that we can quickly solve and that people can learn from than one big problem that blows up and takes the entire organization down. And I guess that goes without saying, But those 100 little problems are gold. We've got to have those 100 little problems for us to solve, because everybody, not only is that building my awareness and my capability, but that's building the awareness and the capability of everyone who reports to me and works for the organization. So, yeah, I give you, a few specific examples. We had a key system that that one of our consultants had set up that didn't have a break glass account, and was set up really slickly, SSO, and everything was moving smoothly, and no one had any reason to doubt anything. But until the day when the SSO certificate expired, and all of a sudden we're locked out of this thing, and the person who set it up was not around anymore. So one of my great IT consultants found a way and said, okay, well, we're going to make sure there are break glass accounts on every single one of these accounts from now on. And even the stuff that we didn't set up and maybe we inherited, we're going to make sure it's there on everything. And we were able to get back in, but it was a little problem. It was one that could have been really big. But you find these little lessons along the way that maybe I didn't address something that I should have addressed. And then you end up addressing it, because you'd rather address those little problems along the way and build your competency from there than try and tackle big problems and fail.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's really important. Opening those lines of communication, making it okay to point out a problem. And sometimes folks get their feelings hurt, and that shouldn't be the intent. We try to focus on the technology rather than, trying to point fingers. But that's really important. And I'm glad you brought that up. That's great advice that you're offering to our audience. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. Go down and make a comment. That helps us to bring more content like this, get the right people in here to share. Jeremy's sharing some great insight for you all today. And so if you like that kind of content, help us out that way so that we can help you. So, Jeremy, let's talk about that people element a little bit more. Just dive a little deeper into that. Tell me about how do you make that okay for someone to bring something to the table and point out that there's an issue, rather than just covering it up or, not addressing it point blank.
It took a while for us to get to this, because no one likes to be told that your baby's ugly. But I think what I kind of came to, and what many of our executives came to this conclusion, that we really do need to celebrate failures, and we need to celebrate these 100 little failures that we have along the way. And the people who bring it up actually become the heroes in a way, because those are the people that say, we just had something really bad happen. And every time we refer back to them, you remember when, I'm going to pick a name that doesn't exist in my team. So Jim, okay. At least in my direct team, I know a few Jims, but when Jim came up with this really, had this brought up that we didn't do this or we didn't do this. Well, as a result, we implemented these solutions and these controls and made sure that sort of thing would never happen again. And you have those communications, and people start feeling very comfortable, and you create a culture where it is absolutely okay for everyone to talk about our failures and talk about them openly, and feel comfortable about talking about them openly without shame. Like I said, no one wants to say their baby's ugly, but sometimes you got to say your baby's ugly to make it a little prettier. So yeah, it's that. And I think also I'm proud of our executive team at Frontier, and that we very much talk to everybody. We'll all talk to the lowest person, lowest levels at the company, and we'll talk to just as comfortably as we'll talk to anybody else. And so there really is no fear. And I feel this very comfortably on my teams, particularly. There's no fear to tell me when they're struggling with something or something's going wrong, and they know I'm here to help them, and they know that I'm here to provide resources. And so there really is no no shame in it, and taking that shame away and making everybody comfortable to really work collaboratively towards the goal is really key.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I'm hearing there is that so it was a deliberate effort on your leadership team's part to make that part of the culture. So that's really good information. The other thing that makes me think about, so you're talking about this account that got set up and this SSO certificate expired on you and so forth. That's one of the challenges that we see, especially, well, frankly, as the organization is smaller and smaller, you'll see this more where someone goes out and does a great job of doing a really quick, heroic effort of setting something up and getting something deployed, but they don't come back and do that work to what I would call productionize it, right? So there's a difference between, and I see this all the time. There's a huge difference between, yeah, we got it running, and we've got it running in a way where you can now depend on it as a part of your operations and the way your business functions. And we've thought through all of those, like the certificate thing, right? We've thought through all of those things, and we've addressed those. Not to say that everyone's going to always get everything 100%, but you're going to get more than if you just you know had that quick win and then went on about your business and went to doing something else. So that I would say that to our audience too is make sure that when you get that win, that now you take time to take that deep breath. You got things rolling, but back up and make sure that it's production ready. And it's, quote, productionized is the term that we use quite often.
Well, and this might speak to your original point about, why are so many CFOs involved in IT, right? And as CFOs, we're in the accounting world. The world of internal controls is our world. That is what we spend a lot of our time thinking about. And when you talk about production ready, that's really I take a risk and controls perspective to our environment where you've got to be thinking about what's the worst thing that can happen at any given point in time, and what controls do I have there to prevent those things from happening? And you're going to have those little mistakes that occur from time to time that's going to go, whoa, there's one we missed. We did not see that coming. And what control are we going to put in place to make sure that never happens again? And so that is an accountant mentality I bring to software development and IT that is a little different. I will say our development team has a different take on things from time to time, but bringing that different perspective coming from the accounting world, provides a little bit of value.
Yeah, I would say that's so for those that. So I came up as an IT manager and IT director directly out of the technical side, and so we have that mentality too. But I do agree that often developers and those less experienced folks don't often think about that. So that's one of those crossover points that we were talking about before, where both sides have that. So, my expectation is that Frontier deals a lot with data and with data collection. Can you tell us a little bit about that and the technologies that you're using and how important that is to your business and so forth?
Yeah, sure. So, giving a broad scope of Frontier, the work that we're doing primarily is running programs pertinent to the energy transition. So we are monitoring a lot of different technologies, including mostly building technologies for energy performance, for how they're consuming energy. So you might just take one research project or one research program we're doing, and we're monitoring 300 points of a home. And we're taking a reading every minute from that one house. And this actually is, these are projects we've done where, and it generates a colossal amount of data over a couple months. And then you look at it over a couple years, and then you multiply that by the amount of times we're doing it. And you've got quite a bit of data. So thinking about it in terms of data, thinking about it in terms of the tools that we're using. I mean, data warehousing is huge for us. How we deal with it, and we are always looking at different data warehousing solutions. We do have a general, and this is kind of built through those 100 little mistakes. We have a strategy built around the way that we handle data and the way that data flows. We have a strategy of how we secure devices that are sending us data from out in the field and how it sends data back to us. This is kind of a bit of our nuts and bolts strategy. I can't really talk about it too publicly because it is something that is both has security and proprietary issues. But I can tell you that, again, we didn't get to this point through anything but trial and error. There's been a lot of trial and error. And this is kind of one of the things about having 6 different companies is when you bring 6 different companies together, you have 6 different ways of doing things. And you learn there's probably some really good things about the way this company's doing it, and some really good things about the way this company's doing it, and some bad things about the way we're all doing it. So why don't we bring this together, take the pluses and minuses of it, and concoct a strategy that makes sense. And this really kind of starts with process, right? Like we have to have just spending that time on the problem, spending that time on the process, not jumping into it, but saying, okay, let's flowchart this thing. Let's see how this works. And a lot of times I think those charts come out of what they ended up doing, and then now we got to chart this thing out. Now we've got to create the network diagram. No, you create the diagram first. You chart it out first. You figure these things out first. And then you very methodically put it together. And again, we learned a bit of that through trial and error, but we got there.
So what I'm hearing there, to a large degree, is think a lot about your plan up front, and then go execute on it. So, yeah, that's great advice. Great advice. So talk to me a little bit about the people side of things, the technology folks that you've got on staff. I mean, so how are you handling the challenges of getting good technical folks and then keeping them engaged?
So yeah, this is pretty interesting. Our work is inherently engaging. So there's one thing about this is when folks join our company, nothing is ever going to be the same every day. We are not the kind of company where you walk in and you come in as an employee and you're going, oh man, this job is boring. I'm just doing the same thing again and again and again. So our clients are utilities, our clients are governments. The work is diverse as can be. So the beauty of the nature of the business that we are in is that it's exciting. It's extremely exciting work. It's extremely engaging work. Now, we do deal with burnout. We do deal with giving people time because it is so engaging, because it is so intense. The bigger challenge for us is making sure that people don't burn out at the end of it, because they feel such an obligation to meet the client demands and meet the needs of our clients that they just simply don't have any more in them to give. And so that is an ongoing challenge that we consistently have to address, and looking at, our employees' health and wellness is really key to us, because if they don't have that, they are going to burn out, and they are going to come to a point where they have to leave the company because they have no other option. It's the right thing for their health. And there's been times when I've seen employees who've been really overburdened leave, and I go, I don't like it, but I get it. I understand what happened there. And again, these are some of those learning experiences we have to take home and say, what could we have done differently here? Because we don't want to lose really good people. So yeah, we've spent a lot of time in training and in really trying to make it as transparent as possible for our people, what the possibilities are and what the needs are from them, so that, and when to set boundaries. And again, I think this idea that failure is acceptable, that from time to time it's going to happen. and providing that allowance takes off a lot of the pressure that folks often feel, because left with nothing else, you're asked to execute the impossible. And when you look at our role in getting to net zero by 2050, it does seem pretty next to impossible. We're going to try our best here, but it's a tough endeavor we're involved in. So allowing our staff that grace that what we're trying to do here is really, really challenging, and we understand that, and we're all in it together, and we're all in it for each other. That's really what we're after. Then the other side of that too is being a little bit understanding that talent comes in a lot of different forms. That talent may not come in all the traditional forms that one expects, and seeking, let's just say, non-traditional talent, folks that can really execute and really execute well, and they may not have all the stuff on paper that we think they should have, but identifying that the talent is there, and we really can use these people in ways that for the work, that in ways that maybe they didn't even envision for themselves, because we can identify that talent and really capitalize on it. And that really comes down to bringing people in, at a fairly entry level, identifying where those talents lie, identifying the drive, the hunger they have to really perform on the work, and making it happen for them, and allowing them to promote, to work their way through the organization and have these varied experiences that's really going to build a great team member. So,
yeah, that's intriguing. In that, one of the challenges I think I've seen in IT from a skills perspective is we're not really good at giving room for someone to be an entry level person necessarily, as a general rule. And a lot of skills and careers have apprentice opportunities and those kind of things that I know there's some programs out there, but as a general rule, across the board, those are far and few between. So, but I have heard. So the encouraging part is I do kind of hear some more conversation along that line nowadays. And I'm beginning to hear an uptick of that type of conversation. So I have a lot of hope that will change. I think there's an opportunity for that to change. We do have to have room for the younger folks to come on board, give them a place where they can learn and grow, make mistakes, all of those things, and so that we can grow out the talent.
Well, and also learn that we could learn from the younger folks that come in. I've had some younger folks who've come in fresh for the organization, and they've just blown my mind and made me go, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be leading this thing, and I didn't think of that. Why? What's wrong with me? So again, having that kind of grace to say, okay, identify. It's amazing when you find someone who's just starting out their career, and they've just got this phenomenal intuition and a lot of the skills along the way, and we just didn't see them. And I think a lot of companies are probably doing this through necessity right now, because it's been a tough labor market for skilled people, and we have to do what we have to do to serve our clients.
Well, and that's where, frankly, I think that some of the consulting firms have a little bit of an advantage in that we see operations and things happen from a number of different industries and a number of different areas. So we can bring in those learnings. So that's what I love about this business is we're going around, we're learning everywhere that we go, and it might come from new talent like you're talking about. It may come from just different talent that have come from different organizations, and they bring in new ideas. So that's always exciting to me to see that aspect of it. What's maybe some of the new initiatives that Frontier has that you might be working on that you can share with us, of course? And obviously that's technology related, Do you have anything like that you would be able to share?
Yeah, so we have our Enertrek platform, and actually you can check it out. It's enertrek.com. That's used to manage large scale utility programs and resource programs. We are coming out with new versions of that towards the end of this year, as well as a couple other products that join in on the Enertrek platform. A lot of this is kind of bringing things together. So there's some really fascinating things happening in energy right now that relate to technology and really rely on some of the technological innovations that are occurring right now. So one of them is distributed energy resources, and for those who are not energy wonks like myself, distributed energy resources are basically anything you can connect to the grid or impact the supply or demand of energy on the grid at any given point in time. So this could be like solar, and this could be other types of renewables, batteries. Even, I've had some folks even argue that a well-insulated attic is a form of a distributed energy resource, because if you do not have to provide the same heating or cooling load to the home, you're minimizing the impact on the grid, and all of a sudden you don't need as much energy, right? So there's a lot happening there, right? Because we have a lot of these very dynamic resources, and I didn't even mention actually, like V to G charging. So as we get to more deployment of electric vehicles, and many of these electric vehicles don't just plug into your house to charge, but they can plug back into your house with a full charge and power you through a power outage. So our grid operators, our independent system operators, which are managing the energy flow across the country, are really having challenges right now, because we've got all of these kind of what we call behind the meter resources that are that are basically impacting the flow, the demand and supply of energy at all given points in time.
So does someone's home, if they have solar on their home and they're feeding that back through, does that fit that same category as well?
It can, but I mean that's even a best case scenario, because in that case the ISO knows, or the independent system operator, ISO for short, knows that, hey, we're getting energy back because there's the sun's shining and they're generating solar, right? But oftentimes it's what we call behind the meter that's challenging for them, because they only know what's going on after the meter. They don't know what's happening behind the meter in the home itself. And so they're calculating and saying, we think we're going to need this much supply at this point in time, but maybe they don't need that amount of supply at this point in time, because there's a whole bunch of other variables that are occurring. It could be the sun shining. It could be that the person just brought their brand new Tesla home and they've got V to G enabled and they plugged it into their new smart meter, and they're powering themselves at that given point in time. So there's a lot of technology around that a lot of companies, not just Frontier, are working on right now. And for us, it's the big challenge of integrating those technologies. And there's a whole lot of innovations in technology that we can use. I mean, AI is going to play a role. Machine learning plays a role, in predicting when these things are going to happen and designing programs around them that make sense for energy users and for our energy systems. So that's really our role. And we've got a lot of people a lot smarter than me across Frontier working on that problem right now, working on those problems right now. But integrating that into our technology platform to Enertrek, as well as into our individual service contracts to our clients and our research is kind of what we're consistently working on. That is our problem we have to solve. So as you mentioned, we do have there's a lot of data that's involved in that equation. We are constantly paying attention to, the next Python library, or, different IoT innovations that we can use to collect the data in a different way, or collect data that we hadn't collected before that might give us an additional insight. So we are consistently adapting to these things, because it really is changing. I sometimes blows my mind that, okay, to me, COVID felt like 10 years ago, because so much has happened since COVID that I feel like I've lived two lifetimes, since that all went down. But, there's been so much innovation in our industry and so much change it really is. I mean, the investments in clean energy, the investments in renewables and energy efficiency now, outpace oil and gas by quite a bit, and are growing exponentially. So we are just as fast as we're finding problems. There's new companies budding up and trying to create solution to those problems. And we see ourselves as kind of the role in the middle, where we try and meet the needs of our clients first, and help them navigate this environment. And so that does require a lot of different technology and a lot of being very dynamic. Let's put it that way.
So you opened up the door, Jeremy. So now I have to ask. So you talked about new innovations. Give me your pitch. What do you think about AI? How are you guys using AI? I mean, everybody has to answer the AI question, right? So go for it.
I'm ready for the AI question. You didn't catch me off guard. No, we're already using quite a bit of what you would refer to as narrow AI. Obviously, no one's using general AI yet, but we use it. Our developers do use it from time to time to develop code. We have, and of course, there with heavy review involved and testing and all the other processes we put in place. There's a lot of potential. We've been around. So our first acquisitions were companies that have been around since 1981. And a lot has happened in energy since 1981. But there's been a lot of these kind of innovations in the woodwork that occurred, different technologies and things that have happened that we've researched over the years that, you bring in our employees who are in their 60s and 70s, and they remember all these technologies, and they remember this great project we did here, and we did all these new things. But our staff member who started 2 years ago doesn't have any idea what these things are. And when they're presenting, solutions to our clients, they don't have that same wealth of knowledge. So we found ways that AI can actually help us access those knowledge bases, the deep data that we have from all these years of experience, and allow that some of the less experienced people to gain knowledge and be able to come up with solutions that make sense for the need. We also have it in place for, so we're dealing with a lot of energy consumers. So these can be residential and commercial. So we also have, some of our program managers, management manuals hooked up to chatbots, so that those chatbots can query the program managers and provide answers to their questions quickly. So we don't have to have someone on the ground. So that's happening in a few areas of our company. We're also using it for geographical analysis. So understanding, where's this, where is energy being used? Where does the sun shine the hottest, and where does the wind blow the hardest? And where does the right solution come into the right place in terms of balancing load and balancing and load shifting? So there's some of that going on as well. Yeah, so we are using a lot of that technology. With all that being said, we do it. I know I didn't make it sound like that just now. But we do it cautiously. We have seen the pattern. I've seen the pattern that, everyone is just looking at every problem and throwing AI at it. And AI is not the solution to every problem, but AI certainly has its role. I think when general intelligence becomes a reality, we're all just going to become taken over by the robots anyway, and they might do a better job than we are.
Mark here today, folks. The big robot takeover,
right? It's
predicted
coming, right?
by Jerry Springer.
but no, I mean, I say that in jest. It's a little, maybe not in jest, but
we'll see.
Yeah,
time will tell.
Time will tell, but yeah, we are using quite a bit of AI internally. And of course, I think the world is in general, but I do not see it as the solution to every problem. I think it's been amazing since the generative AI, large language models have become an amazing innovation. We've all had our minds blown by what it can do, but I still think there's a lot we can do around, just good old fashioned machine learning, right? There's, the without the AI integrate, the AI side of machine learning, right? Just standard machine learning in a narrow data set. It's more controllable, it's more predictable, and it's underdeployed. And I still see it in Frontier. It's still underdeployed in Frontier. And I've got a whole lot more work to do with that before I'm even going to worry about pointing AI at every issue we have.
Right. Okay. Good. Well, so now we're off to the future. Now you kind of dove into it a little bit, but I'll ask you to expand on future technologies. What do you see coming down the pipe and that will make a big impact there at Frontier?
Yeah, I think probably some of the biggest things are on the energy side, the collaboration and between new regulations and technologies to address combinations of new technologies to address those new regulations. And to give you an example, there was recently a regulation set that if you are buying power on an independent system operator, you can, it's FERC, and I may be misstating this, but I believe it's FERC Order 2222. That's stuck in my mind for some reason, but it allows the development of what are called virtual power plants. And there are a number of companies springing up that say, hey, if you give us control of, say, your smart thermostat or your smart panel, or you put these little devices on your outlets and give us control to turn power on and off on key devices in your home, we can sell that savings back to the grid at the rate of the going wholesale rate of power at that point in time. So that is after that, a whole bunch of different companies sprung up offering these different types of IoT devices that you can put in your home, and so that they can then take that savings and sell it back to the grid. And it's kind of a novel concept, and it's sometimes, I think, difficult for people who don't think about the grid a lot to get their heads around. But when you actually do think about the grid a lot, it makes a lot of sense. And there are companies like I'll give a plug to Ohm Connect here in California, who's doing. We've known a lot of those folks for a long time, and I do it. I get little rewards to REI because I saved so much energy at any given point in time. But that's such a collaboration between the technology, some of the technology we already have, and new regulation, and that allows markets to pop up where markets weren't previously. And so I'm a little less interested in new technology than just the deployment of the technology that we have currently, just because I don't think we've really managed the deployment of the technology we currently have. And I think there's still a lot of interesting things we can do with that technology deployment. Now, if someone comes out with a technology in the future that just boggles my mind and makes me think, hey, we can do something else, that I'll be on it, right? But
I think you're on to something about the technologies that we have today maybe not have all been deployed in the right way to get the full usage out of that. So I think that's a very interesting point that you bring up, and a very valid one. So we're about to wrap up here, and so one of the things I want to tell the audience here is, as we're talking through these things, if you have questions, you maybe want to bounce some ideas off of someone, be sure to give us a call here at Emphasis Tech. Go out, reach out to me on LinkedIn is probably really the best way to do that. Just go out there and ping me. Be happy to help you in whatever way I can, and bounce ideas off of you, or you can bounce ideas off of me. So feel free to do that. And Jeremy, how can our audience stay in touch with what's going on there at Frontier, or what you're doing there at Frontier?
Yeah, sure. So frontierenergy.com is our website. It was just recently revamped, so we've got all kinds of new content on there and documenting a lot more of what we're doing around the country. We also our LinkedIn handle is Frontier-Energy, so follow us, and you'll get all kinds of new updates of what we're up to and the different programs we're involved with. Then Enertrek.com is our software platform for if anyone out there happens to be with a utility that's looking to manage their programs more effectively. I say this. I think we have the best tool out there to do it, and have for a while. So Enertrek is that solution. So those are really the three key things to kind of keep up with us. If you pay attention to what's happening in energy, or there's some really great resources from national labs. We always have a presence in energy technology in some way, shape, or form. So you probably see our name around if you just pay attention to what's going on with the DOE and the national labs as well.
Right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today. Be sure to like and subscribe. That way you'll know about new podcasts coming up. We've got some great guests already in the queue. So be sure and do that. Have a great day.